At 5:17 local time in the Strait of Hormuz, the first alert is not dramatic. It is just a brief metallic tone slicing through the steady background hum of ventilation and engines deep inside the carrier. On the tactical screen, 5 new surface contacts appear almost simultaneously off the starboard quarter, moving in quickly. For a fraction of a second, the Combat Information Center goes completely still. Then the tracking supervisor leans in and calls it out. 5 surface contacts, speed increasing. Up on the bridge, the morning light is only beginning to settle over the water. The carrier stays on course in the tight transit lane. Huge, deliberate, and slow compared with the smaller ships around it. Beneath the bridge windows, the bow keeps carving a white line through the gray-blue sea. To the naked eye, starboard still looks empty. On radar, the picture is already shifting. The officer of the deck stays calm. Mark bearing, confirm heading change. Back in CIC, the reply comes immediately. Confirmed. All 5 contacts are turning toward the formation. That is the moment everything changes. Just minutes earlier, it had been a routine morning transit. Flight deck crews were moving through launch preparations. Yellow shirts were directing around parked aircraft. A Hawkeye crew was already heading for its aircraft. Below deck, sailors were working through another normal cycle of watches, checklists, and controlled noise. Now every action becomes sharper, tighter, more focused. Not panic, just pressure. The kind that sets in when everyone aboard realizes the same thing at once. This is no longer routine. At 5:18, long-range optics lock onto the lead contact. Heat shimmer ripples over the water, but the outline of the hull begins to come into view. Then another. Then a third. Image analysts start identifying classes. Fast attack craft. Second one matches. Possible corvette. Then a pause. Correction. 2 larger combatants, 1 command vessel behind them. 5 ships in total. Not merchant traffic. Not fishing boats. Not random clutter in a busy strait. This is a coordinated group, accelerating together and angling inward toward the American formation. The first bridge-to-bridge hail goes out in English. Iranian naval vessels. This is a United States warship conducting lawful transit. You are approaching at unsafe speed and bearing. Alter course immediately. No reply, no static, no acknowledgement, no sign of confusion. Just silence. At 5:19, one of the destroyers screening the carrier reports the same situation from a lower angle and much closer to the developing problem. The contacts are tightening. CPA is dropping. Closest point of approach. That number matters. In open water, ships can posture for hours and still leave enough room for mistakes. In the Strait of Hormuz, space is exactly what no one has. A carrier cannot turn like a patrol boat. It cannot vanish behind a swell. It needs room to maneuver, room to protect the formation, room to keep the screen intact. These 5 Iranian warships are not just closing distance. They are compressing the geometry of the entire formation. On the flight deck, the signal changes. Crews begin clearing all non-essential movement from the launch area. Chains come off one Super Hornet, then another. A pilot halfway up the ladder pauses as the carrier's internal net crackles with a short, flat update. He turns his head toward the island, says nothing, and keeps climbing. At 5:20, the second hail is transmitted. English first. Then the clipped phrasing of standard maritime warning language repeats the message more directly. Still nothing. The tactical action officer watches the display as the green symbols continue sliding inward. They're not shadowing, he says. No one answers because no one needs to. The outer screen begins to shift in ways that are now visible. An Aegis destroyer turns its sensors fully toward the threat axis. Fire control procedures remain disciplined, but every track is being measured, refreshed, and projected. Electronic warfare operators begin collecting emissions from the Iranian ships. Surface search radar, intermittent sweeps, signal timing, behavior patterns. Not enough to justify opening fire, more than enough to show intent. At 5:21, visual confirmation finally comes in clean. Iranian flags, 5 hulls. The 2 smaller craft lead the movement like blades cutting across the water. Behind them, 2 corvette-sized ships widen the approach, one pressing high along the flank, the other sliding toward the carrier group's turning space. The 5th vessel stays slightly behind the others, centered and composed, almost unnervingly calm compared with the rest. It moves like a command ship, the quiet force directing the pattern. Then one of the smaller craft accelerates again. CIC updates the bridge at once. The lead contact is now making 28 knots. Even in a room trained to stay unreadable, that changes the atmosphere. On the bridge, the captain steps closer to the windows. He does not look at the radar first. He looks toward the water, toward the point where the contacts will finally emerge in plain sight. And when they do, something feels off immediately. They are too fast, too direct, too certain of exactly where they are headed. Launch the Hawkeye. Stand by. Alert fighters. Hold fire. The order is controlled and precise, but everyone on the net hears what lies beneath it. The carrier group is shifting from transit posture to survival posture, one layer at a time. At 5:22, the first Iranian ship becomes clearly visible off starboard, throwing up a hard white wake as it cuts inward. Another appears behind it, then another. All 5 warships are fully committed now, their formation opening like a fan designed to crowd the American screen from several angles at once. One of the escort commanders reports what everyone can already see. Contacts are entering defensive control space. The carrier answers immediately. Understood. Log all. Record all. Maintain formation. Still no shots. Still no impact. But the gap is closing fast. By 5:24 local time in the Strait of Hormuz, the Hawkeye is off the bow and climbing into the pale morning sky, while the space around the carrier is already tightening. On the tactical display, the 5 Iranian warships no longer look like separate tracks. They look connected, like one coordinated motion pressing in from starboard and forward starboard. Each hull is positioned to strain a different part of the American formation. One fast attack craft drives low and aggressively toward the outer screen. Another stays slightly wider, ready to cut inward the moment the destroyers adjust. Behind them, the 2 larger combatants spread just enough to threaten the carrier group's room to turn. The 5th vessel, the command ship, remains behind the line, steady and deliberate. This is not reckless movement. It is controlled pressure. They are not charging blindly. They are shaping a trap. At 5:25, one of the screening destroyers reports a sudden crossing move from the lead Iranian fast craft. Contact bearing 086, altering hard, crossing close. On the destroyer's bridge, the approach is no longer just a symbol on a display. It is fully visible. The Iranian craft skims low across the chop, moving fast enough to throw a solid wall of spray off its bow. Its angle is wrong for safe navigation, wrong for routine shadowing, wrong for anything except intimidation. The American destroyer does not overreact. It holds formation, adjusts only enough to preserve separation, and keeps its guns trained just off the center line. No wild turn, no panic move. In water this tight, breaking formation can be even more dangerous than taking the pressure head-on. Inside the carrier's CIC, the tactical action officer studies the geometry. "They're trying to compress the screen," the captain answers at once. "Do not get split." That command moves through the formation like current through steel. The cruiser off the carrier's port side eases into a tighter support position, preserving the radar umbrella and missile coverage. The starboard destroyers align to keep the 2 fast Iranian craft outside clean launch geometry. Above them, the Hawkeye reaches working altitude and expands the picture. Its radar sees what the ships below can only sense in fragments. No additional warships are racing in from the horizon, but there is clear electronic support coming from the Iranian side of the strait. Search radars, intermittent queuing, unseen eyes from shore. At 5:26, another bridge-to-bridge hail is sent. Iranian naval vessels, you are maneuvering unsafely toward a United States carrier formation. Alter course immediately. This time, a voice answers. Not loud, not rushed, calm, flat, and completely unhelpful. United States warship, you are near Iranian-controlled waters. Maintain distance. No acknowledgement of the unsafe approach. No indication they intend to turn away. Just enough words to fill the silence while their ships continue pressing forward. That makes the moment even colder. On the flight deck, the first 2 Super Hornets are now fully at alert. Their canopies are sealed. Their engines rise into a sharp metallic roar, blending with the carrier's own deep mechanical pulse. Yellow shirts move in perfect rhythm with launch prep, signaling, stepping, pointing, clearing, every motion precise, nothing wasted. Behind them, deck crews secure loose gear while the carrier keeps moving through the strait, a floating city of steel holding its balance while danger closes in. At 5:27, the Iranian corvette, high on the flank, opens a panel near its forward weapons section, and it is noticed immediately. Inside CIC, every set of eyes shifts. Possible launcher exposure. Not confirmed, not ruled out. Just possible. And that kind of uncertainty is exactly what can push a tense moment over the edge. Almost at the same time, the electronic warfare team calls out another development. Narrowband sweep from the lead corvette. Intermittent fire control behavior. Not a full lock, not yet. But enough to tell the Americans that the Iranian ships are no longer just checking distance and heading. They are now probing firing logic, testing timing, and building options. The captain hears all of it without changing his tone. Continue recording, continue warnings, launch the fighters. At 5:28, the first Super Hornet is thrown off the catapult and tears into the morning sky. The second follows seconds later, climbing hard over the carrier's starboard side before banking toward the threat axis. For now, their role is not to hit. It is to be seen. Speed overhead, pressure from above, a clear reminder that the battle group is layered in depth, not spread thin on the surface. Below them, the Iranian pattern tightens again. One fast craft suddenly pushes toward the projected route an escort would need if the formation tried to create more turning room. Another lingers just outside that line, ready to exploit any reaction. The larger corvette on the flank keeps sliding inward, its wake sharpening as it gains speed. Behind them, the command vessel sweeps the American screen with low-power radar, measuring every response. At 5:29, a Seahawk lifts off from one of the destroyers and drops low over the water, its blades hammering the air. It does not charge straight at the Iranian ships. It angles in with control, using altitude, speed, and camera line to make sure it is seen. Its job is not engagement. Not yet. It is tactical presence. Eyes forward, evidence gathered, pressure applied. From the Seahawk's nose camera, the nearest Iranian fast craft fills the frame. Men are visible on deck, helmets, life vests, movement near the forward mount. The picture is sharp enough to capture faces. Bridge crew exposed, the helosensor operator reports. Weapon station manned. At 5:30, the helicopter sends its own warning. Iranian naval vessel, you are operating unsafely against a United States naval formation. Alter course now. No reply. Instead, the fast craft turns even harder. That one move sends a shock through every American ship in the screen, because the new angle no longer fits simple harassment alone. It matches a position consistent with a launch lane. The Hawkeye sends down an updated track. The starboard destroyer confirms it. CIC runs it again. Same result. Lead fast attack craft entering weapons release geometry. No one says the rest out loud. No one has to. 5:31 local time. Strait of Hormuz. The first flash is so small it almost escapes notice. A brief white-orange burst from the bow area of the lead Iranian fast attack craft. Low over the water, sudden and sharp, gone in an instant. But inside the combat information center of the carrier group's starboard destroyer, nobody misses it. Flash detected. A heartbeat later, the track solidifies. Missile away, starboard side. Everything changes in a single instant. For the last 7 minutes, the American formation has held fire, recorded every move, issued warnings, and fought to preserve space. Now the threshold is crossed. On the bridge of the destroyer, the order comes immediately. Weapons free. It does not sound dramatic. It sounds rehearsed, like steel finally being allowed to do what it was built for. The Iranian missile stays low, skimming just above the chop, using the clutter of the sea to delay detection for as long as possible. But the American ships are already deep into the response sequence. Electronic warfare hits first. Decoys arm. Jamming floods the threat axis. The missile's seeker now has to fight through layers of false signals and interference before it can ever reach the center of the formation. Then the interceptor launches. From the destroyer's forward cells, a surface-to-air missile erupts upward in flame, climbs hard, then knives down toward the incoming track. Everyone on the starboard side sees it. One bright line rising, one deadly line racing in. The intercept happens clear of the carrier's hull, but close enough to feel immediate. The sky flashes white. A rolling odor of sound follows across the water a split second later. Burning fragments scatter in a widening arc, some hissing into the sea, others tumbling black against the morning light. For 1 second, it seems the worst may be over. Then the second Iranian ship opens fire. This time, there is no missile flash. It is harsher, heavier violence, rapid bursts from the forward gun of one of the larger combatants, firing across the water toward the American outer screen. The first rounds land short, throwing up tall columns of spray. Then another lands closer, then another. On the carrier's bridge, nobody needs clarification anymore. This is open combat. Execute defensive turn, the captain orders. Open starboard room, keep the screen intact. The carrier begins a measured change of heading, not a panicked swing, not a desperate dodge. A controlled maneuver meant to recover room to move without breaking apart the protective formation around it. That matters now. Everything matters now. Turn too sharply and the screen deforms. Wait too long and Iran keeps the geometry it came for. On the flight deck, tension becomes pure concentration. Deck crews drop low behind available cover. Non-essential movement stops instantly. A young sailor near the island structure hears the intercept blast and looks toward the sea just as a plume of spray erupts off starboard, high enough to catch the edge of the dawn light. For a brief second, it looks as if the ocean itself is being struck. Above the formation, the two Super Hornets bank hard into position. They are no longer symbolic presence. They are now part of the fight. From the Hawkeye overhead, the tactical picture sharpens further. One Iranian fast attack craft is still charging in after the failed missile shot, trying to stay effective inside the confusion. Another begins drifting outward, possibly setting up a second launch angle. The larger corvette that opened fire keeps pressing forward, but its pattern has changed. It is no longer shaping the battlefield. It is trying to stay alive long enough to land a hit. The American starboard destroyer answers first. Its forward gun fires once, then again, measured, spaced, deliberate. Not panic fire. Ranged, corrected, controlled. The first rounds bracket the lead fast craft. The third lands clean. The small Iranian vessel jerks violently, its bow disappearing in smoke and spray. It continues forward for a few more seconds, but slower now, dragging a trail of dirty exhaust. Lead fast craft hit, CIC reports. Still underway, reduced speed. The Seahawk, already low over the water, streams live imagery back to the formation. Through its nose camera, the Iranian craft suddenly looks much smaller than it did moments ago. Men are running across the deck. One weapon station is silent. Smoke pours aft. At 5:34, another threat appears. A second missile launches, this time not from the damaged fast craft, but from deeper in the Iranian line. The Hawkeye catches the separation almost immediately and pushes the track to the ships below. An escort destroyer locks it up and launches again. The American response is faster this time, sharper, cleaner. The intercept happens farther from the carrier than the first. A tight flash low on the horizon. Brief, sharp, then gone, leaving only drifting vapor and falling debris. 2 missiles launched, 2 missiles destroyed, but the fight is still far from clean. A burst from the Iranian corvette reaches the American outer screen before the return fire fully breaks its rhythm. Several rounds splash wide into the sea. One does not. It strikes the upper section of an American escort ship topside. Not catastrophic, but real. Metal tears loose. Antenna equipment snaps away. A localized fire erupts near exposed systems. One sailor is thrown to the deck by the blast wave. Topside hit, minor topside hit. The report changes the emotional temperature across the entire formation. Until now, the carrier group has fought mostly through distance, timing, and interception. Now there is visible damage. Smoke rising from an American ship. Casualty reports beginning. The kind of evidence no one can dismiss later. And that is the exact moment the Iranian formation begins to lose shape. One fast craft peels away. Too late. Too fast. Too obvious. The damaged lead vessel is no longer driving the action. It is slipping out of it. The corvette that had been firing presses on for a few more seconds, but American air power is now overhead in full view, and every escort ship has its range. 5:36 local time. Strait of Hormuz. The shape of the battle is changing. Only minutes earlier, the 5 Iranian warships looked coordinated, aggressive, deliberate, each one pressuring a different angle of the American formation. Now one lead fast attack craft is burning aft and dropping behind, its wake broken and uneven. Another has widened too far, trying to escape the kill zone forming around it. The corvette that had been firing is still engaged, but its timing is gone now, disrupted by missile defeats, return fire, and the sudden shadow of American aircraft overhead. This is the true turning point of a naval clash. Not when the first shot is fired, not when the first blast lights the sky, but when one side loses control of geometry. And at 5:36, the geometry flips. The carrier, massive, deliberate, built for endurance rather than speed, has recovered the turning room the Iranian formation tried to take. From the outside, its course adjustment looks minor, almost subtle. Inside the formation, it changes everything. The escorts are no longer compressed. They are layered again. The outer destroyers push their coverage farther from the carrier's hull. The cruiser tightens radar umbrella and missile support. Above them, the Hawkeye continues feeding a clean tactical picture to every American ship on the net. The trap Iran tried to build is collapsing under the weight of the battle group's response. Screen restored, one escort commander reports. On the carrier's bridge, the reply comes calm and immediate. Maintain pressure. Protect the carrier. That is the mission now. Not pursuit, not punishment. Control. At 5:37, one of the Iranian corvettes attempts one final inward surge, likely trying to create a last firing lane before the Americans fully seize the initiative. Its bow throws white water as it accelerates, but this move comes alone. No synchronized support, no coordinated pressure. One Allied ship is damaged, another has drifted wide. The command vessel remains farther back than before, still present, but now reacting instead of directing. The American starboard destroyer sees the opening and responds. Its gun fires in measured bursts, not a stream. Range correction, splash, correction again, then impact. Rounds strike forward on the Iranian corvette, near enough to the bow to force an immediate change in behavior. The ship does not erupt. It does not break apart. It simply loses confidence all at once. Its heading wavers, speed falls, its wake shortens. On the Seahawk's live feed, Iranian deck crew can be seen pulling back from the forward gun position. One man stumbles. Another disappears behind the superstructure. Smoke begins to vent from the forward section. Thin at first, then darker. Target slowed, the helicopter sensor operator says. Bridge movement erratic. That single line says enough. Above the formation, a Super Hornet drops low over the water and tears across the Iranian command vessel's line of sight. It is not a strike run, not yet. It is something colder than that, a demonstration of control, fast, low, and impossible to ignore. The kind of pass that tells every sailor on every deck exactly who controls the air above the fight. Back within the Iranian formation, the reaction is immediate. The second fast attack craft, the one that had widened earlier, turns even farther out instead of cutting back in. The first damaged craft is no longer adding anything except smoke. The corvette that tried to surge forward is slowing with visible trouble. That leaves the command vessel and one remaining larger escort as the only ship still capable of organizing resistance. At 5:39, the command vessel makes its move. Its radar behavior changes. Stronger, sharper, less intermittent. No longer the uncertain probing seen earlier. Now it is focused and deliberate. The kind of signal every American electronic warfare operator has spent years learning to recognize. They're tightening fire control behavior, the EW officer reports. That is enough. The American response comes instantly and with precision. One escort targets the vessel's combat systems area and fires, not to sink it immediately, but to strip away its ability to see and direct. The rounds land high near the topside sensor cluster and forward superstructure. The result is brutal in the way modern naval combat often is. Localized, accurate, crippling. A radar array shutters. Secondary sparks burst near exposed electronics. Emissions spike, stutter, then collapse into static. The ship is still afloat, but it is effectively blind. For the first time since 5:17, the Iranian side no longer looks like the aggressor. It looks like a force searching for an exit. At 5:40, the retreat begins. Not with a signal, not all at once. Just the unmistakable unraveling of a formation that knows it has lost the initiative. One vessel begins laying smoke. Another turns away hard enough to throw a curved wall of white water from its stern. The damaged fast craft continues drifting out of line, now clearly left to its own momentum. The corvette hit forward angles away and slows further, no longer pressing forward, only trying to survive. The American battle group does not rush after them. That matters. A less disciplined force might have turned this moment into reckless pursuit. Instead, the U.S. formation stays with doctrine. Protect the carrier, restore spacing, confirm no additional launches, maintain air cover, log damage, control escalation by controlling the field. At 5:41, the CIWS mounts that had been tracking begin to settle. Their barrels stop searching. On the carrier, deck crews rise from the cover where they had flattened themselves moments earlier. On one escort ship, firefighters continue battling the small topside blaze caused by the earlier hit. Medical teams move quickly and low, checking the sailor thrown down by the impact. No shouting, no dramatic speeches, just damage control, exactly as trained. The Seahawk makes one final orbit along the Iranian withdrawal path, recording everything. Smoke trails, damaged hulls, broken formation, confused movement on exposed decks. 5 ships entered the clash like a closing fist. At 5:43 local time in the Strait of Hormuz, the shooting is over. Not because anyone announced it, because the sea itself has changed. Only minutes earlier, the water around the carrier group was carved by hard white wakes. 5 Iranian warships driving in, American escorts maneuvering to hold the screen, helicopter rotors beating low over the surface, interceptors climbing into the dawn sky. Now those wake lines are falling apart. One Iranian fast attack craft trails thick black smoke and barely answers its helm. Another is already turning away into open distance. The damaged corvette, struck forward and slowing, drifts out of useful position. The command vessel remains afloat, but no longer projects control. It projects survival. On the bridge of the carrier, no one celebrates. There is still too much to do. Maintain air cover, the captain says. Rebuild full spacing. Damage reports from all escorts. And the carrier keeps moving. That is the first real answer to the assault. No halt, no panic turn, no shattered transit. Just steel, momentum, and discipline. The massive American flat top keeps moving through the Strait of Hormuz beneath a widening sky, as if reminding every sensor, every surviving Iranian lookout, and every lens still recording that the ship they came for is still underway, still whole, and still advancing. At 5:44, the first full reports begin moving across the net. One escort has taken a topside hit, a localized fire, damaged exposed equipment, and one sailor hurt by concussion and debris, but the ship remains fully operational. No propulsion loss, no weapons damage serious enough to change the outcome. The carrier itself is untouched. The flight deck is intact. The air wing is still ready to launch. That matters more than anything because this was never some random close encounter at sea. It was a coordinated attempt to trap a U.S. aircraft carrier, compress its protective screen, force a bad maneuver, and land a hit inside the confusion. That was the idea. 5 Iranian warships came in fast, pressed hard, and made the first move. And they failed. At 5:45, the Hawkeye expands the wider picture. No second wave, no additional Iranian naval units rushing in from the horizon. Shore-based emissions are still active, but more cautious now, watching the aftermath instead of shaping it. Above, the 2 Super Hornets continue their pattern, fast and steady, crossing the withdrawal path of the Iranian ships with the kind of effortless control that does not need to announce itself. Below, aboard the American escorts, crews are already shifting into the next phase. Damage control teams continue cooling hot metal and checking compartments. Gun crews remain at their stations, scanning for any last-second reversal. Electronic warfare operators preserve raw signal recordings from the Iranian vessels. Search radar, targeting behavior, emission timing, every detail. From the Seahawks feed, the withdrawal is captured in sharp detail. Smoke pouring from one fast attack craft, crew exposed on damaged decks, a corvette moving at reduced speed with poor heading control, and the command vessel falling back without any of the confidence it showed on the way in. Everything is being documented, not for headlines, for the record. At 5:47, the carrier's flight deck begins reopening in controlled sections. A yellow shirt jogs back into position and starts signaling around equipment left frozen at the start of the clash. Nearby, a maintenance chief wipes soot from his sleeve and looks starboard toward the thinning smoke hanging over the water. Farther aft, an ordnance crew checks tie-down points and launcher status with barely a word. This is how naval battles really end. Not with music, not with speeches, with checklists, fuel states, wounded counted, launchers checked, antennas inspected, burned panels noted, every second accounted for. On the damaged escort, the injured sailor is moved below. The fire that had licked around the topside equipment is out now, reduced to steam and black staining across metal. The ship's captain sends a brief report to the formation commander. Operational, staying on station. That matters too, because the Iranian commanders needed one clean visual, one disabled escort, one broken gap in the screen, one visible sign of collapse around the carrier. They got none of it. Instead, the American formation absorbed the attack, knocked down the incoming threats, answered with control, and kept the center of the formation exactly where it needed to be. Alive, steady, and moving. At 5:49, the Seahawk makes one final pass abeam of the withdrawing Iranian ships before turning back. Its camera lingers for a moment on the burning fast craft now falling badly behind the others. The image is sharp enough to show twisted rail sections and blackened plating. This is no longer an active threat. It is evidence. Back on the carrier, a young sailor stands for a brief moment along the edge of a safe deck line and looks out toward the distant smear of smoke. He heard the intercepts, felt the shock through the steel, watched the outer screen take a hit, and keep going. Beside him, a chief petty officer glances once toward the horizon and says the only thing that matters. They took their shot, and that is the truth of it. They took their chance against a U.S. aircraft carrier. By 5:51, the formation has fully settled back into ordered motion. Escorts restore spacing. Air cover remains overhead. Radar continues sweeping. No one assumes the danger is gone just because the firing has stopped. In waters like these, caution lasts longer than adrenaline. But one thing is clear now. 5 Iranian warships entered the fight believing a carrier could be boxed in, pressured, maybe even broken inside a narrow strait. What they found instead was a battle group that absorbed the blow, held the line, and kept moving. No confusion, no collapse. Just the kind of answer only a carrier group can give.